Thank you for joining us, everyone, to session 6. Our panel today is on building resilient operations and how firms can future-proof without over-engineering. The regulatory landscape is evolving rapidly, and private funds face increasing pressure to stay compliant, efficient, and agile. So our goal today is to explore practical strategies and innovations that help firms build resilience without slowing decision-making. So joining me today are two industry leaders, Adam Walker, Managing Director at IQEQ, which is a global provider of fund administration, outsourced middle office, and transactional CFO services. And Ron Rossi, VP of Client Success at Pereview, a platform that centralizes portfolio, deal, and investor data for asset managers. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Amanda.
Of course. So question 1 is for either one of you to answer. So as private funds scale, how can firms strike the right balance between building resilient operations and maintaining agility in decision-making? What practical steps have you seen work in the market today?
Adam, I'll let you take it first.
That's all right, Ron. So I think one of the biggest things is find balance between the two, the resilience and agility. I think one of the big things is defining your priorities early. There's this case of really aligning what you know and understand what you're good at. Clearly understand what you're not good at, whether you haven't hired that individual. A simple example of having a chief compliance officer, for example. Maybe you have someone that is highly experienced in that area. Maybe not. Maybe you have a CFO that's covering it. They've got the accounting and some of the regulatory standpoint from that side, but not the compliance. There's more of a CFO component, even reviewing your fund administrator's work, whatever it might be. There's all these nuances across the board that you may or may not be good at. And you need to highlight those and understand and appreciate that you aren't good at everything and you don't need to be at the end of the day. But that matters to the investors and really understanding what they expect out of you and what they understand and what their expectation is of what you need to do and what you need to be good at. Because understanding what makes you different is going to be key. And the fact of the matter is you're not your differentiator. If it is, that's not going to last forever. And so understand those capabilities. And then the last thing is just having a component of infrastructure that is changeable. The world we're moving into, a single source system across or probably isn't going to processes that work really well today that maybe don't work well in 6 months or a year or 3 years from now. And so how do you rip a piece of that out and put something new or better? And really that comes down to planning and understanding where your business is at and how you support that now, but as you continue to grow, and how do you build that infrastructure and continue to grow it?
Great points, Adam. If you don't mind, I'll add just a few things and may bring a technology lens to it. But certainly agree with Adam. As a business, you need to decide what your required and desired business outcomes are, and then make sure that you've got the right people and processes in place to achieve those. And Adam's correct, you're not going to be able to be proficient and an expert in everything. And oftentimes it doesn't make sense to be proficient in all those areas. So you need to find partners to potentially outsource some of those things to. And then that can ensure that your people are focused on the high value things and managing at a high level. And then certainly technology. Providers are innovating and growing quickly and skating to where the puck is going. So you want to find good technology partners that can help you create some efficiencies and transparency within your business. And I would just add with those decisions, whether to outsource or find partners to work with or a technology provider, it's really important to have those decisions be top-down decisions, essentially mandated by the senior leadership team, so that there's ownership and buy-in across the entire organization to ensure that the business strategy and the plans that are set out are executed upon, and everyone is rowing in the same direction. So it's really important to have a strategy that's top-down.
Yeah, so important. Completely agree with you, and those are great suggestions. With that, we're going to go into our first polling question. Go. Which approach do you believe is most effective for balancing resilience and agility in private fund operations? A, outstanding middle office functions. B, investing in integrated technology platforms. C, building in-house expertise and processes. Or D, a hybrid approach combining outsourcing and technology. I think this is a good one to kind of see where our audience is thinking is most effective. So we have about half of our audience responded. Give you another 30 seconds to get your answers in. So you can get your CPE. Okay, results are in. 18% saying outsource middle office functions, 23% investing in integrated technology platforms, 24% building in-house expertise, and 34% a hybrid approach of combining both. It's interesting. It's very evenly split across all of those. So I think they're probably all equally as important. Okay, so moving on. Let me see. So Adam, as IQ EQ offers a broad suite of services beyond traditional fund admin with outsourced middle office support, SEC-driven reporting, and fractional CFO support, let's talk about how that plays into resilience. So from your vantage point, how are private fund managers leveraging this suite to kind of future-proof their operations and regulatory resilience? And how do they decide which elements to adopt versus keeping in-house? Where do they strike that balance?
Well, I think those poll results were really interesting. I'm glad we did that before this because it kind of hits on this, and I mentioned it a moment ago, but there's different balance and different requirements that different groups have based on the expertise, their backgrounds. You know, some of the firms we work with, they're coming in with a heavy legal background and they understand the nuances around that. There's other individuals that are coming in with an investment banking background where they've been a deal person for their entire career. And then all of a sudden like, oh, I didn't know about all this back end work, you know, that takes place and the structuring and the tax component and all these massive elements that really haven't been thought about because they were on the front end of the decision-making of the investment. Highlighting some of these results, it makes sense. You know, I think it doesn't surprise me that the hybrid component is coming into play where it's like, hey, we need to figure out what we're good at, where we need to fill in a gap. And there might be turnover and retention issues within a firm that might be taking place in certain areas. And so all those things bring things to the forefront of what's important for the business across the board. That's where groups like IQ EQ can come into play, where we can bridge that gap, where there's short-term or long-term, you know, filling those gaps and meeting those needs. You don't want to be, you know, out of compliance. It was mentioned on the last panel, you know, about compliance and how important it is to stay on top of it. There's a code of ethics across the board, and sometimes it doesn't seem like it's important, but it is super important. Those little things matter, and you can get in trouble when examinations or different things come into play. Keeping your fund administrator in check, making sure that they're doing things appropriately, that things are being reviewed, all those things come into play. And then being the fund administrator, you know, doing the debits and credits and making sure that your investors are having a good experience, whether that's the portal or the documents that they're getting, the experience for making a payment, you know, do they know that when things are coming in? So all these things matter and come into play. And you have to really have this strategic versus tactical lens. And my personal belief is when it's a tactical component, you should do everything that you can. You should probably lean more internally, especially as you continue to scale. When you're an early adopter or you're an early emerging manager, you know, sometimes you do need to rely a little bit more from an outsourced service provider of some kind for the strategic for that. So that's a key thing to remember. And maybe just one other component and a saying, I don't even know where I heard it, but I like it. It's be world class where it counts and outsource the rest. And I think this matters a lot, and especially when you're small, when it's a 1, 2, or 3 person team to begin, it's really hard to be world class in every single little thing. And so really think about that. Like, what can it be world class? Where did I come from? What's my bachelor's truly rely on me to be work is? I don't know or know externally and find those opportunities to see, can you pair up with a service provider, a technology provider that can really supplement what you're doing. They're not going to take over everything and just have this automatic robot doing everything. That's not how it works, but it's really a partnership. And this really comes into play. And then from a technology standpoint, you can rely on, I think that's one thing that people don't often appreciate with third-party service providers is the integrations that they have with other groups. A simple one is IQ, EQ, and Pereview. I know Ron very well, from that perspective. If we work really well in cases, we understand how things can work from a technical standpoint, whereas someone coming in from the outside may not be able to have that. They may be starting from scratch or having something that may be a little bit more difficult, or they might have to be feeding things in a little bit differently. And so just a simple example, you can rely on those things from a technology and software perspective to really build your environment and really have access to the data that you need to really scale your business at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I love that point about understanding kind of the GP's background, right? Where they came from and what experiences they've had in the past to understand kind of what support they need going forward. And it is another great point about your service providers knowing each other and, often working together can make your life a lot easier, and the integration can be pretty smooth where they kind of keep you out of the back and forth, but get it all done kind of behind the scenes together. So absolutely appreciate that. Ron, let's talk about technology. It's another critical piece of the puzzle. Pereview positions itself as a single source of truth for asset managers. So in an environment where transparency and speed are critical, how are firms using platforms like yours to reduce operational risk, to improve reporting accuracy, and enable real-time decision-making without adding too much complexity?
Yeah, I mean, this is a real challenge in the industry, and generally speaking, commercial real estate, private equity are fairly slow to adopt technology. But once adopted and utilized throughout the entire organization, it creates tremendous efficiencies, and with efficiencies comes speed, which you referenced, as well as transparency, and that's a really big theme that we're seeing in the industry. So, Pereview is the only software that manages both debt and equity from a portfolio and asset management standpoint. So that's helpful because we have a lot of clients that have a multi-pronged investment approach. They're not just investing in real estate, or maybe not just in commercial real estate. They could be investing across the capital stack. They may be an LP in some deals and an owner operator. They may operate a fund. So in finding a technology partner that is also resilient and is from the industry and has that type of experience and can help you manage different components of your business is really key. I would also say that since we're talking about the regulatory environment, having a technology partner that has SOC 2 Type 2 compliance and has really good a really good handle on security, data governance, and compliance overall is a key differentiator. But our platform and what we're really bringing to the industry is helping our clients get out of Excel, unless that's the right tool, which it is in many cases. But we're trying to help our clients get out of Excel and to bring all of their disparate data sets together in one place, which again is helpful for many of our clients that invest across different asset classes and different positions in the capital stack and may also extend debt. So getting out of Excel, getting all of your data into one place is really the key starting point. And then from there, you could start to deliver that transparency and speed. Speed being, rather than having to go to multiple accounting systems or multiple technology solutions or spreadsheets to get an answer to a question, or to try to find the needle in a haystack that is a risk component that everyone should be aware of. That takes time. It's very challenging. In some cases, depending upon how complicated those systems are, it takes someone with the right skills to be able to maneuver through those applications and through those spreadsheets. So being able to bring all of that disparate data into one system is a huge opportunity for the market and for our clients, where they can start to deliver efficiencies and speed. in terms of transparency, our clients that are fully adopted and enabled, and going back to one of the things I suggested earlier, like technology and these strategies have to be top down. Our clients that are utilizing Pereview from that top down approach, they're running their meetings out of Pereview. They're answering questions with Pereview and with the data that's in there. They're running their investor meetings out of Pereview. So the adoption of the platform and getting your team and all of your stakeholders into Pereview to find the answers that they need to run their businesses and meetings creates a tremendous amount of efficiency, ensures that everyone is looking at the same information at all times, and that it's as real time as possible, and you're delivering real-time, transparent information to anyone who has a question or needs access to that information.
Yeah, I feel like that's been a topic of conversation, the readiness of and availability of information and how fast you can get it out of your own information, how fast can you get it and get it to your investors. So it's extremely important, and sounds like that's kind of like a one-stop shop for all of those things. So that's a great solution. With that, we'll go to polling question number 2. Okay, it's up on the screen. What is the biggest barrier your firm faces when adopting technology for operational resilience? Is it A, cost and budget constraints, B, integration with existing systems, C, regulatory uncertainty, D, internal resistance to change? So I'll give folks a couple minutes to answer that. What's most important to you?
Adam, I certainly don't want to sway the audience, but I have a feeling this one's going to be dispersed fairly evenly again, too.
Yeah, I think so. I guess you're right. And they all make sense. I think that's one, if you had all the above, it'd probably hit an E pretty hard too, though, as well, for most people.
Yeah. We added that to our last one, but not to this one. We should have, you're right. Might be hard for people to choose.
Might be. That's the easy answer.
All right, so it looks like the results are in. It looks like the first two are the highest rated ones as barriers, cost and budget, of course, integration with existing systems, and then lower on the regulatory uncertainty and internal resistance to change. So that's good. But yeah, not a surprise. Those first two are probably the most difficult barriers to adopting change.
Yeah, that's not a surprise either. And not to overstate what people are probably already thinking, given the results, but budget constraints are certainly a concern that a lot of our clients have when we're thinking about outsourcing and bringing on partners. But if they really spend the time to develop a strategy around that and partner with the right firms, they'll see that in the long haul, there's real cost savings with those solutions.
Right. So for either one of you, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for outsourcing or tech partnerships to help firms stay lean? We kind of touched on some of it already.
I think Ron hit on it a minute ago. Go ahead, Ron. I answered first on the first one. You go.
No, you go. You already had a good train of thought, please.
Well, I was going to link it to what you just said, because I think there's this idea of technology. It's not always cheap. At the end of the day, it can be relatively expensive. But if you look at it from a game of scalability, what you're paying today helps you double, triple, quadruple, whatever, at the same cost or cheaper for what you're doing. You have to have that mindset of scalability with everything that you do. It's not just technology, it's your service providers, it's everything else. What kind of operational leverage is a key thing for me. If you don't get operational leverage from any service provider, any technology, whatever it is that you're doing, it's not worth buying, even if it is cheap, for that matter, it doesn't make sense. Like, that's what this should do. And I think AI is going to fall into this as well. I think it's too new to know exactly how it fits for a lot of these things outside of very basic components. But I think there's a leverage piece of it. How do you leverage the people that you have? How do you leverage the technology that you have? And how do you leverage the data, at the end of the day? And I think if you can bring congruency amongst all of those, I think that's where that trust, scalability, keep a firm foundation across the board for your business.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I was just going to add, I think, the answer is in the question to some degree, partnerships. So IQEQ is a partner and a trusted advisor to their clients. Pereview is as well. And where we see the real opportunity for firms to, one, find the cost-cutting measures that they might be looking for, because it is sometimes expensive to get started and to implement a software. But the key is to get through that quickly and to do that with a trusted partner and advisor, because they are going to ensure that you're making good decisions and they're not just a single point solution doing one thing or providing one solution. And you've got a multitude of those, and then there's overlap, and maybe that does get expensive. There's these apps now that you can look at and find out how many subscriptions am I paying for on a monthly basis. Like, oh my gosh, I'm paying for 25 subscriptions. It could get to a point where you're bringing on too many providers and too many tech solutions. So it's really important to find that partnership and that trusted advisor in those firms. And from that, they will work with you to help you recraft your business and future cast your business, so that you can ensure that business change management is happening in a way that it's most beneficial for you and creates the efficiencies and provides the scalability that you're looking for.
Excellent. And while I ask the next question, the last question, we can pull up the last polling question and give people some time to get their answer in, because it kind of goes hand in hand with the last thing. So we talked about some opportunities and the good things about the partnerships and technology. What do you think is one emerging risk that you think will reshape private funds in the next 3 to 5 years, say? And that is our polling question also. So that is the question for the audience. And these are some options here to choose from. Increased regulatory reporting requirements, cybersecurity threats, data transparency and investor demands, market volatility and liquidity. So if you guys have any final thoughts on, or all of the above, I think is down there as well. Oh no, it didn't make it onto the slide. Okay. Well, all of the above was supposed to be an option, but it's not on there because I think when we were preparing for this, we figured maybe all of these would be, an emerging risk in 3 to 5 years. So I guess pick which one you think will be the most prevalent. But if you guys have any thoughts on that, we'd love to hear what you think.
It could certainly be in all of the above again. So it'll be interesting. It's interesting to see what the answer will be. Given the time that we're in, I think market volatility and liquidity changes are top of mind for a lot of our clients. I can't tell you how many meetings I've sat in where they've said, we're on business plan number 3, and we don't know what that's going to look like. So they've had to be flexible and nimble and creative in some way. So market volatility and liquidity challenges have really been top of mind for a lot of our clients as they're thinking about, how do they maneuver. Where do they allocate their time? Scrutiny around new investments and putting capital out is very high. So that seems to be, given where we are today, certainly a big theme in the space.
And if I can add 1 or 2 things on it, there's an investor component that plays into it, both on what investors are expecting. I think we're all used to institutional investors just demanding what they need and want, just based on the check size that they're putting in. And there's a certain level of every investor is asking for a little bit more. And so some of that's becoming a greater requirement and an extra burden for everyone across the board. And so how do you balance that across the board? What do you have to give? What should you give? How do you build that? And then the other one is just the ever-changing, this falls into the liquidity category, not only the investments and some of the struggles that are going on there, but for investors, the different types of investors that are coming into play, the different products that our industry is starting to see and probably will continue to see, and the changes that play into that. And a lot of it involves liquidity that comes into play, whether it's the interval funds or evergreen funds, hybrid structures that are coming into play. There's a lot of nuances that are becoming tricky, and I don't see those going away. It's a little bit more complex, but hopefully as more structure and a lot of these pipes that we're all working on right now become more conducive for that environment, we'll see a lot better experience for most importantly, the investor and our clients.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for left today on this topic. And I just want to thank Adam and Ron for sharing your expertise with us and the audience for joining us. Thanks, everyone.